Good evening and a very, very warm welcome to you, especially if it's snowing where you are. It certainly has been where I live today. Welcome along for a very special celebration for the publication day of the fourth book in my Hedgehog Hollow series, A Wedding at Hedgehog Hollow. And tonight is, as I said, extra special because I have two amazing guests, if they just want to wave when I say their names. So we've got Anne and we've got Angela. And they are both sporting some amazing hedgehog merch there. So I'm sure you can see Angela's got a big hedgehog on a t-shirt, and Anne has a hedgehog on her t-shirt. She's gonna, oh, it's just so cute. So we'll find out a bit more about who Anne and Angela are in a moment. I'll get them to do a bit of an introduction. Now we've got about an hour chat coming up, and we can talk a bit about my forthcoming release, but mainly today it's about finding out about the amazing work that both Anne and Angela do in Wolds Hedgehog Rescue Centre. They are real life Samanthas, they are real life hedgehog rescuers in the real life Hedgehog Hollow country. So where I set my book in the Yorkshire Wolds, which is a huge stretch from just south of Scarborough all the way down to Hull, across to the coast, and it's a huge area of the Yorkshire Wolds, and they run Wolds Rescue Centre, and the name probably does give it away that it is right in the Yorkshire Wolds. So real life detail we'll find out. We'll be putting some links on the screen throughout the session to the Facebook pages of Wolds Rescue Centre and also Walkington. Have I said that right? Is it Walkington or is it Walkington? Walkington Rescue Centre, which is also in the area, and they work very, very closely and collaboratively together. And again, they'll talk a little bit more about that later. As a listener, a very warm welcome to you, and a warm welcome also if you're watching us on catch up later. If you are live, please do say hello, make comments, ask questions. You can ask questions of our guests, you can ask questions to me about my book. What we'll probably do is, if it's more about kind of overall writing, I might not have a chance to answer that, but I will catch up with any questions asked later tonight, or certainly by the end of tomorrow. I'll put some comments in the Facebook feed. But we're really, really keen to hear any questions about hedgehogs, any comments, any hedgehogs that you've discovered, that you've even rescued. If you're involved in a rescue centre, please do share all of that detail, and as and when we can, we will kind of feed in those comments. Now, I'm going to play Question Master today. Those who know me well will know that my day job used to be in HR before I became a full-time author, and I was a head of recruitment, so I'm absolutely used to asking the questions, and therefore any opportunity to put me in interview mode, I'm all over it. So I will be asking questions. You will notice that I am wearing, you may notice actually, I'll come a bit closer to the screen, I'm wearing hedgehog attire today as well. This is my Popsy dress with little hedgehogs and flowers all over it. But I'm also, because we're celebrating a wedding at Hedgehog Hollow, I've got my tiara and veil on. If it is good enough for my pal Sarah Bennett, another Boldwood author who writes brilliant Mermaid's Point series, if she can wear a mermaid wig, I can wear a veil and tiara when we're talking about a book about a wedding. And these are actually my own tiara and veil from when I got married September 17 years ago. So they've been hiding in the attic and they've stayed beautiful. So let's start with meeting Anne and Angela. So I had the pleasure of visiting Wolds Hedgehog Rescue in November last year and chatting to both Anne and Angela and meeting some of the gorgeous hedgehogs there. I got to hold a hedgehog. It was amazing. Would you like to introduce yourselves to our listeners and tell them how and when you first got involved in rescuing hedgehogs? So we'll talk a little bit about your setup later, but how did you first get involved? And let's start with Angela.
I've always loved hedgehogs ever since I was a little girl, and I've brought my wedding, I don't know if you can see this because it's really, really tiny. Oops, dropped it. But first disaster. But my little hedgehog there was on top of my wedding cake 31 years ago. So that's my little hedgehog there. But I've always loved them. And where I live now flooded in 2007, and it's a new build, relatively new build estate. We've been here 21 years, but we started getting a lot of hedgehogs visiting after the floods. So I've been rescuing really for about 15 years, initially with autumn juveniles, because we put a hedgehog box in the garden, we put food out, they started coming, and I started learning more about them. And initially I was involved with Hull Hedgehog Hospital that's been long closed now, but the lady there taught me quite a lot from the start, so with hand rearing and autumn juveniles. So we've gone from having a few hedgehogs in the downstairs toilet to now having a room full of them.
Not literally in the toilet, I'm assuming.
No, stacked up in boxes. So we've had an accommodation upgrade. Daughter's moved out and the hedgehogs have moved into the nursery.
And we can obviously see part of that behind you, but we've got a specific question where Angela is going to talk us through the setup that she has got a little bit later. And what about Anne? How did you start getting involved in rescue hedgehogs?
Well, I must admit, I've always been an elephant sort of girl, but I was an upholsterer and I'm Yorkshire. So all my spare material I use up making handbags. And I have a friend with an embroidery machine. She embroidered me loads of different animals, hedgehogs being one of them. And I saw an advert for a hedgehog rescue wanting raffle prizes. So I took them along and I just got more and more involved. And I went down and helped out a few times. And then I overwintered, and then I was approached by the RSPCA in the Wolds and asked if I would be prepared to work with them and the vets in Bridlington and Driffield. And so that's where Wolds came from. I just set it up to do very local hedgehogs to the Wolds.
Fantastic. And I have seen, when I came to visit, Anne showed me some of the bags that she's got embroidered, and we'll talk about some crafts and things a little bit later, but oh gosh, they're absolutely gorgeous. And Anne said that she's an upholsterer. When I went to visit, I ended up coming away with a chair, didn't I? Which Anna's upholstered, and there's the most gorgeous hedgehog image on the back of it. And it has had a load of stuff piled up on it recently, so I've just cleared it, and I will get a photo taken soon, and I will share that on my social media feeds. So Anne, you just finished on kind of setting up setting up Wolds Hedgehog Rescue. So can you take it a little bit further? Tell us a little bit more about that, where you're based, when it was established, and what sort of setup you have in the hog house.
Okay, so I'm in Hutton, which is a little village just outside Driffield, and Wolds came into being sort of in the middle towards the end of 2019. I have a hog house, which used to be my husband's wood store, who he very kindly just vacated for me.
No coercion at all.
Yeah, there's no coercion at all. My grandson moved in, stripped it out, whitewashed it all for me, and then the wonderful man who is my husband, then kitted it out, set up all my shelves and everything. So I have 12, cages, and that's a squash. I have been up to 15, which was a laugh.
Which is hard to imagine, having been in there. I'd said to you when I was there, where on earth did you fit them all? It's amazing.
Well, you sort of upturn a bucket and put a cage on that, and then move out all the straw and everything, and put a cage where that lives, and needs must. So, yeah.
Always see them at the inn, eh? Bless them for the hedgehogs.
I also keep hold of, well, I don't keep hold of, I seem to be the one that gets all the donated food and everything. So I'm a bit of a storekeeper as well. All our volunteers who want anything come and collect it from me.
Oh, fantastic. Love it. And Angela, how did you get involved with do you know, I keep saying Wolds. I can't get my words out. Wolds Hedgehog Rescue. And what's your role? And then after that, if you could talk us through the setup that you've got behind you. I believe you've got a few props to show us.
I have, yeah. So I met Anne. I was still working at the time, so my role at that point in Hedgehog Rescue with the local Hedgehog Rescue was very similar to Anne's, doing a lot of fundraising. I baked, I crafted, I helped out at events if I could. And then, like Sam in the books, I was a nurse, and I've now sort of retired from nursing, and hedgehogging has become a full-time job. But Anne, who I knew from all this before, we did some of our training together, asked me to join up as a hedgehog nanny, so which is a full-time job in hoglet season. So where I am now is my hoglet nursery. I have a shed outside that's for the bigger hedgehogs. We just have one resident out there at the moment, Bentley. But in here, yeah, and I have holly and cactus in here at the moment. So no little ones because it's the wrong time of year. But behind me, you can probably see on the shelves, there's 2 incubators on one shelf. They're the ones that are permanently set here. Plus there's a travel incubator on the shelf above it. And a lot of the bits and pieces that I use with the hoglets. And you can probably just see if I get, so it's that way. We're not very good with our left and right, but I can put 4 cages on those shelves, and they're set up with heat pads if I need. And also I've got cactus sitting on the table behind me, which is where I put the cages to clean them out. But she's sitting there because she's coming out to say hello later. So
excited about that.
Yeah.
And it's so beautifully tidy. I'm so impressed with how well that is arranged. It looks lovely and organised.
Well, the shelves were my birthday present last year, just to organise it a bit better. So it was my craft room after the daughter moved out, and then I started hand rearing full time, so it became the hoglet nursery, and it's been known as that ever since.
Oh, brilliant. And you have a few props, did you, that you wanted to show us? And this very much links to, we're going to talk a little bit later about how you could potentially help Wolds and Walkington Hedgehog Rescues and your local ones as well. And one of the things that they have that's very important is a wish list, and we'll put up the links to that. So an Amazon wish list, which is very much the things that are kind of really, really key. Oh, look, it's coming along the bottom. That's perfect timing. So the things that are really, really key to help running the rescue centre, like food, equipment, meds, different things. And what Anne does is changes what's at the top of the list based upon what they're running out of or need more of, or the priorities for the time of year. So some of what Angela's showing you, you might see on the wish list and think, I have no idea what that is. And so here's your opportunity. So over to you, Angela.
So in true Blue Peter fashion, it's almost like, here's one I've prepared earlier. So looking after hoglets is a full-time job. It's very much like having a newborn baby, but often multiple of them at the same time in here. So in hoglet season, I can spend most of my time up here. So I've got a nice comfy chair, which is behind me, but you can't quite see that. And a lot of the equipment is very similar that you would have for babies. So we have the formula milk that I've mixed up a little bit there so you can see. So the bottle, like baby's bottles, goes in the fridge, and I just warm up as much as I need in a very weeny little jug for them. And we feed them a puppy milk. So that comes, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm sorry, I'm not getting the light on it very well, but we get huge buckets of puppy milk, and I got through, I think, 4 of these last year. So it comes as a powder, and then we add things to it like babies. So one of the things we do, because hedgehogs can get wind like babies, we'll make it with fennel tea, the feed. They have baby vitamins in it, and we often give them Infocol like babies, and it just helps reduce something called bloat in them. And we feed them with tiny little 1 ml syringes, and these all have different feeding tips on them. So depending on the size of the hedgehog, we use sort of the different feeding tips. And then to feed them, I usually, we recycle a lot. This was part of my daughter's old onesie. So I just wrap them up in a tiny little cloth to keep them warm, and they will sit on a heat pad while they're out of the incubator being fed. So they have to be fed. So after they've been fed, or sometimes before, they get toileted. So we have to tickle the tummy with cotton buds or bit of cotton wool, and then a bit of bum cream as well, because they can get sore. So that's every couple of hours, and then once they're about sort of 2 weeks old and they start opening their eyes, we start to wean them. So they come off milk, they go on to something called puppy mousse, which we often get a lot of that donated on the wish list, which is it's like a chocolate mousse but meaty flavoured, very soft, and we mix it with the milk and we can syringe feed it to them. But we try and encourage them to lap it up themselves. So the first dish they start with is actually a milk bottle top, which you can see that, or chasing them around with a little bit on a toddler spoon as well. And then they progress to slightly bigger dishes, like a little butter pat dish, or another type of small dish like that. But they do like to paddle through food. It does get rather messy. So we do a lot of cleaning up here.
Love it. Oh, that was absolutely brilliant, Angela. Thank you so much.
So,
I learned loads from that, actually.
Yeah, the other thing we have, I mean, obviously they can't wear nappies, but one of the important things that we do have for them are we nurse them on puppy pads.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because when they can move around from being newborn and their ligaments are very soft. And if we put them on newspaper, they slide around and damage those ligaments.
Oh.
So putting them on puppy pads, they have a much better grip, and it stops that ligament damage things. So the puppy pads are good, and they get everything sterilised as well, like babies do. So I just have a big tray set up with the sterilising stuff, and even we have over here the baby bath for cleaning them up, because say they do get filthy. so that's kind of a lot of the equipment we have. And the other thing we do we feed them, because they're in an incubator and they can get dry, extra rehydration fluid as well.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
So that's just some of it. And the most important thing, because they don't have a mum, we give them a substitute mum. So we have Big Yellow Duck.
Oh, I love Big Yellow Duck.
Yeah, which they can. It is really good. Is the Yellow Duck, because they can snuggle underneath it. And the other thing that surrogate mum we have is just an old fuzzy sock stuffed with tights, and they like to snuggle up to that as well. So.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
I love that, because I think that really brings it to life, because as you say, you might look at a wish list and think, what on earth is that doing on there? And that just shows how important all those things are, and how amazing it is. I love the fact that you use pseudocreme and things on the hedgehog. That's just so adorable. So fabulous. I think I'm going to have to keep this and keep a track of this link, so that I can then regurgitate a lot of that information the next time I write, because my next Hedgehog Hollow book will have babies back in it again. They were in book 2, and they'll be back in. It'll be baby season when I'm on book 5. So thank you for that.
Hopefully you'll have visited the nursery before the next one.
Definitely coming back several times, and we've talked about me coming back and visiting the nursery, particularly when hoglets are there, and having a go at feeding it, because again, you can hear so much about it, but actually having a go yourself is just brilliant. Now, while Angela was talking, you might have heard some noises in the background there, and so she has 2 hedgehogs at the moment, and they're eating and they're slurping, and so if you can hear some little noises coming through, it is the hedgehogs, and we will be getting one out very shortly to show you. Just first, back to Anne. Anne, I know that you have several foster carers, so obviously Angela does an amazing job, worked together with you for quite a while, very much focuses on hoglets and hoglet season, although does take other hedgehogs around the year. Now, you've got lots of foster carers, and obviously you said at the beginning you work closely with Walkington Hedgehog Rescue as well. So how does it all work? How does the volunteering thing work? Who gets involved? So just kind of give us a really feel for all of the people who were involved behind the scenes in keeping these hedgehogs alive.
Well, when we first set it up, I knew Rachel at Walkington, so we got together. We're 2 totally independent hedgehog rescues that work absolutely hand in hand. We swap information, we're shoulders to cry on, and we do all our fundraising together. Rachel works, I don't, so I've got the luxury of time. Rachel actually works in a veterinary establishment. She's got the luxury of knowledge.
And connections.
Yes. So, and then we, Angela, myself and Rachel, we're like the intensive care unit. We get them in, we give them the meds, and then we go, yeah, but now you're cage blocking because you've just got to put a bit more weight on before we throw you out back into the wild. So there our fosterers come in. We've actually got 10 fosterers, and between them, they currently have 36 cages. Wow. And about half of them are also equipped to put heat pads in, which means we can kick them out even sooner. Yeah. She says, with a totally empty hog house at the moment, which has just been packed up, ready for re-whitewashing. So I'm at the luxury at the moment of actually pining for hedgehogs. So anyhow, back to it. We don't just have foster carers. We have all sorts of volunteers. We've people that just do fundraising for us. We've got a group of knitters and crafters because it is not a cheap thing to run a hedgehog. We're extremely lucky that we're sponsored by the RSPCA. They pay all my vet fees, which is a tremendous help. And thank you very much, Bridlington RSPCA. They were the kick that I needed to start it up, really. So we've got a massive team of about 20 people. We have socials, we get together, we like to meet up, we do lunches, we do all sorts, really. It's a family and it feels like a family. What we don't do is we don't ask anybody to do anything that they're not comfortable with. If you just want to overwinter hedgehogs and give them a bit of safe and secure place to hibernate, that's fine by us. If you want to get involved in the heat pads and taking on a few meds and that, that's fine by us. We just do whatever's comfortable. We have a fabulous chat room where everybody gets involved and nobody, to my knowledge, is frightened of asking questions, because my mantra really is, if you don't know the answer, it's not a silly question.
That's all. And there's bound to be somebody else who's thinking, I don't know that answer either. Yeah. But then somebody who does and can help you out. So yeah,
yes.
Set up. And you mentioned earlier the man who can as well. And Angela has a Mr. Hedgehog, don't you, Angela?
I do. Yes. Yeah, we are so very fortunate. And it mirrors the books, which I have read. Did I mention it? I did start the other one at 5:30, the new one at 5:30 this morning. But like in the books, family support is really, really important. And all of us, myself, Anne, Rachel, we all have wonderful other halves who are very tolerant of hedgehogs. My Mr. Hedgehog will help out and feed as well. My daughter is a teacher, so summer holidays, she will often come and help with feeds and things. And she's been out with me to do talks as well, because she's been brought up with having hedgehogs in the house. So we often joke that the bedroom is less smelly now with hedgehogs and tidier than when it was when she was at home.
I bet she loves when you say that.
Yeah, and even my dad gets involved crafting. He's nearly 80. He's losing his eyesight, but still doing woodwork for us to sell things. And Mr. Hedgehog does a lot of woodwork for us to sell as well. So
brilliant.
I've got man who can, and he does, and he sort of built the structure of the hog house for me. He built me some cages. He keeps us going. Inside our cages, we have little nest boxes, which the messy little things destroy. And yes, so he's very good at knocking a couple of dozen of those up, so everybody's got a supply of them. He also makes fabulous nesting boxes for the garden, and he sells them for profit for the hog house. And he is extremely tolerant. He just won't clean them out for me.
Oh,
Yes.
No, I know when I was there, I had the chance to meet him, and it was lovely because he had another shed in the garden that he was pottering around and making things in, and you were like, oh, I just need such and such. Yeah, get that sorted. And what an efficient and capable husband. What an absolute star. And as you say, it's one of the things that I do very much try to get across in my Hedgehog Hollow books. In the second book, where it's properly up and running and Samantha's trying to do things, she tries to do everything herself and just soon realizes, to the point where she actually ends up fainting at work because she's been up all night trying to feed hoglets and do a full-time job and run the rescue centre. You cannot do it alone. All of those helpers behind the scenes, even if it's just someone who fundraises, even if it's someone who's making some wood products, somebody who's spreading the word, it's all absolutely invaluable, isn't it, in the ultimate job. Even if you're not the person who is feeding or giving meds to the hedgehog, you still have an absolute vital part to play in it. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now, obviously, one thing that's come out from what both of you said is there's a huge time commitment here. These hedgehogs, they need feeding regularly, they need cleaning, they need lots of attention, and as you've said, they are extremely messy and like to wee and poo everywhere and trail it around their cages and all sorts of stuff. So there are some messy parts to the job, there are some demanding parts to the job, and I can imagine some very sad parts to the job. So what personally do you get benefit-wise from being a hedgehog rescuer? Why do you keep on doing that? So start with you, Angela.
Okay, so there's been a lot of stuff recently about how good interacting with nature and wildlife is good for your mental health, and it's almost like nature on prescription. For me, I lost my career in nursing through an invisible disability. It's called fibromyalgia, which is has a lot of symptoms, basically chronic pain and fatigue. It affects how my brain functions. I don't sleep particularly well, and that's an advantage when it comes to looking after the hoglets, because it is no problem getting up every 2 hours at night to feed them, because I'm generally awake anyway. But it's almost like therapy in a way, because while I'm busy with the hedgehogs, I'm distracted from things like pain. So it means I'll take less painkillers. And it's just so good for your mental health as well. It's a reason to get up and to do, because you're responsible for these gorgeous animals. And being asked to become a hedgehog nanny just came at the right time when I went on long-term sick. And it got me through a really rough time and has become my full-time job, and I love it.
And it's like as one door closes, another one opens, and it's so fulfilling. And I can imagine how satisfying it is knowing that you're playing a part. And what about yourself, Anne? What do you personally get from it?
My hog house is my port in the storm of life. It's tranquil, it's quiet. I can shut the door and I can be me. I don't have to be mother. I don't have to be taxi driver. I don't have to be granny. And it's the mental health thing, isn't it? Especially with these last couple of years that we've had. Lockdown to me was no hardship at all, really, which is sad to say. I have rheumatoid arthritis, so like Angela, I'm in pain quite a bit. But it just occupies you. It's the reason for getting up in the morning and through the night sometimes and things like that. And at the end of the day, the satisfaction when you hand a hedgehog back to somebody who found it in a state, and it's this spiky ball that really is uffing its way through life now. It's just amazing to know that you've played a part in that.
Oh, it touches me so much. It makes me feel quite emotional thinking about what you do, because they are so gorgeous. They are so vulnerable, and we'll talk a little bit more about the vulnerabilities later. And some of them get to you in such a horrendous state, but, you know, saving that life, making that difference. Every time I save a life on the pages of my books, I have a moment and just feel, you know, okay, it was fiction and it didn't really, but I know there are people around the country who are doing that, and I feel so special about that. Now, we will explore kind of the downsides in a little bit, but we have a very special guest who is going to join us. So as it's evening, the hedgehogs are awake. We have a chance to meet one. So Angela, can you tell us who we have, how are they getting to you, and what they are being treated for?
Okay, I'm just putting my gloves ready, because when we're handling the hedgehogs, we do always wear gloves, and that's because they can pass on diseases and conditions to us, so we're always really careful. The only exception for me is when I'm handling the babies, because they're so tiny. So I'm going to show you Cactus, who has came into us in December as an autumn juvenile. And I think she weighed a similar weight to Tinsel in the beginning of the book. I don't think that's a spoiler, is it?
No, not at all. That's
the first hedgehog I encountered in the book when I was reading this morning. And funnily enough, the first name this hedgehog was given was Tinsel, until it was held by the little girl who helped find it and changed its name to Cactus. But we often have name changes. And she came in at about 319 grams, which is small for the time of year in December. Certainly wouldn't be able to get through hibernation. But with a lot of the hedgehogs this year, she had a triple whammy of parasites, roundworm, fluke, and lungworm. So she finished her treatments for those on Boxing Day. And she's still in the nursery because one of the meds she's had means it can drop her temperature lower for about a month afterwards. So they need to be kept somewhere where they can't risk hibernating. Otherwise, it can be really detrimental to them. So she's up here. She's 551 grams today. So she's growing quite nicely. And hopefully we'll get her released once we've got a weather window anytime from the end of January, when she's clear from her meds. Yeah. So she's been quite a neat and tidy little girl until today. And the hedgehogs are also good at crafting, like us, but for them it's paper mache when they tip the water bowl over the newspaper, and also poop soup when they they poo in the water bowl and paddle in it and paddle around the cages. So she's already had a top-up of newspaper today.
Oh, my goodness. No wonder Man Who Can says, I'm not cleaning the cages, Anne. Delightful.
So would you like me to go and get her out?
Yes, please. Let's meet her. So been very much looking forward to this. Can hear her Cactus chomping away there in the background. And we wouldn't, if we'd been doing this during the day and the hedgehogs had been asleep, we wouldn't get them out, because one of the things that hedgehog carers do is it's not about disturbing them. These are not pets. These are wild animals. Isn't that right, Anne? And so it's about handling as little as we can. You told me you really only handle them for meds, and cleaning.
Yep, absolute minimum.
I'm just going to give her a stroke, and with any luck, come on, sweetheart.
Her nose just peeped out then, and then.
Yeah.
Sweetheart. Hello, Cactus.
Well, this is Cactus. I'll just see if
Hello.
I'll just sit her on some fleece and see if she's easier to see that way. I'll look at my gloves. She's quite a friendly little girl. She was just sitting in the doorway of a little house just then. So half in and half out. I think deciding whether to go back to snack some more. But if I just
she likes that better, yes.
There. So here's
beautiful,
beautiful girl. So there you are. Bring her a bit closer.
I know I haven't kind of pre-prepared you on this, but while we're looking at a hedgehog, what are the signs now that, somebody sees a hedgehog, talking about cactus, what are the signs that they're healthy? What looks good on this hedgehog?
Okay, so if I turn her over, and she's usually quite obliging like this. So if you can see like that, she's a beautiful ball.
Yeah,
I'm struggling with my left and my right a bit here, but
that's okay.
That's better. She's a beautiful ball shape, and that means she's developing quite nicely. She's well nourished. She's putting on weight nice and steadily. But rather than being a football shape, a hedgehog that's struggling might well be like a rugby ball shape, very tapered. If you held them this way, the bottom end would taper down, and we've had some really, really thin ones recently. So she's all bright-eyed. She's got a full complement of spikes, and she's a nice spiky, like a cactus. And poorly hedgehogs, the spines often lie quite flat. So that's not a good sign either. And often, if they're missing patches of spines, that they might have something like ringworm or mange mites and things.
She is absolutely beautiful.
She is.
Thanks, Cactus, for saying hello to us. We really appreciate that, Poppet. We'll let Angela
pop her back. There you are. She's doing what she should around people, balling up, which is a good thing. So a hedgehog that's out in, if it's out, you come across it at night and it balls up, that's a good thing. If it's laid flat, not good. Laid on its side, not good. So should we put you back?
Thank you so much. So just while Angela's putting Cactus back, I sometimes go through and say hello to various people who are here, but we just have so many. And so I'm just going to say hello and thank you to everybody who has tuned in and joined us. I can see Boldwood authors there. I can see people who love my books. I can see people who I think probably know Anne and Angela. Loads of different names. My mum's here. Hello, Mum. And so thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I did spot a question somewhere that I think we have a little bit further down, but it just seems a good opportunity to talk about it now because we mentioned how Cactus was called Tinsel before. So Nia, who is my editor, has asked, how do you name the hedgehogs? And one of the things that I do in my Hedgehog Hollow books is I choose themes. So, for example, I have had themes of pop stars, film stars, Disney characters, cartoon characters, things from childhood. In my most recent book, anybody who's got to the point, I've got unusual words. So I have some hedgehogs called Ooch and Flip and Flippity Gibbet and things like that. So I don't mind who wants to answer first. Where do the names come from?
Oh, I just ask the person that fetches them in. Yeah. I sex it. I say it's a male. What would you like to call it? Because I run out of ideas.
And then we get. And the males invariably end up with female names because we've had Mr. Poppy recently.
He was in when I was there, so it was Remembrance Day that he was found, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, he's just been released back to the wild.
Brilliant. Yeah. In fact, if anyone's seen the pictures on social media of me in the hog house holding one, it's Mr. Poppy that I'm holding. So, yay! Oh, it's so lovely to hear that he's been released.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can imagine actually coming up with names. I mean, it's certainly one thing that I found in my books. I had to go for the themes because I thought, no way am I going to be able to keep thinking up names. My very first book, it was hedgehog type names. So I had Mrs. Tiggy Winkle and I had Mr. Snuffles and I had Sonic and I had a few that are very much about hedgehogs. And I thought, I can't keep that going. So that's when I came up with film stars and things. But then some names just don't seem right for them. So lovely. Thank you for that question.
Lots of spikes. We can have several spikes and prickles and sonics in at the same time.
I can imagine. Oh, bless them.
Yeah.
Now, Anne, what are the most common ailments that you've been treating recently? And does that change throughout the year?
Parasites, mainly. We get, like Angela's already mentioned, a lot of them come in with one of three or all three of the most common parasites, which are the lungworm, the roundworm, and fluke. Fluke is the worst one for me. I think the first three hedgehogs I lost were all fluke. It's easy enough to treat, but the treatment is so harsh that sometimes they don't pull through, especially if they're in a really bad state when we get them in. Lungworm and the cough, that's the next one that, although that's quite easy to treat, it's just drops on the back of the neck. But again, we always used to automatically give them antibiotics with it. We don't so much now because we're getting very, very conscious of overdosing on antibiotics. We don't want the wildlife to become immune. So,
gosh, yes.
I tend to deal mainly with those, and I also do injured hedgehogs. Looking after injuries is one of my. I love it.
And I can imagine them all like with the little splints and different things on legs. Is there a more common injury that you tend to find that hedgehogs have?
Snout injuries are quite common.
Foraging and catching their nose on things.
Foraging and catching their noses. We have quite a few eye injuries, but I suppose the biggest injury is the predator attacks. Yeah. Although a cat will worry a hedgehog, a dog will bite a hedgehog. The dog normally comes off worse, but the puncture injuries can be quite horrific. And strimmers. Don't go there.
Please, people, check the spaces you are strimming. I've seen some strimmer injuries outside my daughter's primary school. There was like a bit of an embankment bit, and there was, well, I won't say you can imagine, a strimmed hedgehog there for ages. Why nobody did clear it away from where there was a primary school. It was the most horrific thing I've ever seen. Oh, awful. So yeah, please, it takes minutes just to brush through where you're going to strim if you do need to use a strimmer.
The second one is rodent traps, rat traps. If a rat can get in it, most times a hedgehog can get in it. And the worst one I ever had was, it hadn't been checked, the trap. It had a hedgehog in it, very malnutrition, but it had literally worn all the skin off its feet trying to get out of this rat trap. So if you must put traps down, even humane traps, please check them really regularly. Elevate them off the ground. I know hedgehogs can climb, but not as far as a rat does.
Oh, that's heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah, just a little thought.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Angela, is there anything you would want to add to that, about any ailments, or would you just very much echo what Anna said there?
Yeah, and the other things that really aren't good for hedgehogs that we're getting and we often can't pull back is things like slug pellets are poisonous to them, and it's very difficult to get them back from poisoning. And there's so many alternatives these days to sort of chemicals in the garden. And of course, by going sort of more organically, less chemicals in the garden, you're more likely to get hedgehogs, And
actually, hedgehogs eat your slugs. You don't need to have the pellets down. So it's kind of, it's something potentially that, it helps you without having to do the poison treatment, doesn't it? So
yeah, slugs aren't quite their favourites. I mean, they much prefer beetles and bugs and worms. And slugs, unfortunately, carry lungworm, but they will eat them if there's nothing else. So
now, sorry, go for it, Anne.
Can I also mention ponds? Hedgehogs are prolific swimmers, and they absolutely live it, but they can't always get back out of your pond. So a little ramp, screwed up piece of netting that they can climb up, anything like that. just so they can get out.
Yeah, it was one of the things when I was researching for my book that I hadn't realised how good a swimmer they were. And so again, in my second book, where mainly the rescue centre is up and running, I do talk about that. And it is it's not the swimming, it's not the drowning, it's the exhaustion from getting out, isn't it? That can be what causes the demise. So yeah, you know, quite a few rescue centres and places do, you know, people make little ramps with roots on to get out. And I saw a program, an amazing program, documentary with Steve Backshall a couple of years ago, and one of the things they were having at the local bowling alley was that in some of the gullies at the side, hedgehogs were falling into those. So again, they built some little rutted ramps so that the hedgehog could go into the little gully, but then kind of climb its way back out again, which was so adorable.
Yeah, the other thing that can get stuck in is drains. If a drain covers off and they get stuck down there, really difficult for them to get out. But that's what we think happened to Annie, one of our admissions this year.
You think she got stuck in a drain, or?
We did. She was very muddy. She was a hedgehog. I was over at the hog house at Anne's, and we stood in the garden chatting, and Anne's gaze just wandered over to the side, and mine followed it, and then Annie the hedgehog wanders out from under the incinerator, which wasn't lit, absolutely caked in mud. We think she'd been, and this was in the middle of the afternoon, and we think she'd been stuck somewhere. This was a day when I was collecting the hedgehogs because Anne was going away, so I'm moving some around. So she came back with me as well. But
how opportune that she appeared while two hedgehog rescuers are there in the garden chatting.
Well, she knew where to come. Yeah, yes, they do.
Interesting. That actually links to a question that I spotted. There from Joe Bartlett. Are the Wolds a particularly popular area for hedgehogs? And if so, is there something about that environment that encourages them? What can we do in our own local area to be more hedgehog friendly? Well, we'll talk about how you can help hedgehogs in just a moment. We've got a separate question about that. But certainly picking the first part up then, what is it about your area? Or is it not unique? What would you say? So Angela, you know, is it a particularly area that massively attracts hedgehogs?
Yeah. Well, I actually don't live in the Wolds. I live in Hull. And like I said before, our house was built 21 years ago, but we're surrounded by lots of green areas. I've got a fabulous hedgerow in front of my house, and estates are often away from main roads. And there's a lot of awareness now about hedgehog highways. So hedgehogs can move from garden to garden, under hedges, under gates, under fences, without having to go onto the roads, dangerous areas. And they've sort of adapted to living in more suburban areas as well as the more traditional sort of, you know, rural areas as well, especially as a lot more people sort of support feed them. But that's in the rural areas as well as in the town. But I live on quite a small street. At the end of it, there's 4 houses, and 3 out of the 4 of us feed our hedgehogs. So.
Oh, fabulous. So again, you know, hedgehogs remember, they know where they've been fed. They're going to come back when they know that there is a supply of food there. I'm very conscious of how fast time is going. I think we could happily talk for hours. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip across a couple of the next questions we have, because I think what's really important to do is address what was effectively the last part of Joe's question, and something we've got about public helping. So hedgehogs have been struggling for a long time, and in July 2000, very sadly, needed to be reclassified as vulnerable to extinction on the red list for British mammals. So the public play a really important role in making a difference and ensuring that our European hedgehog continues to survive and thrive. So Angela, what do you think are the most important things that the public can do to help save hedgehogs at this or any other time of the year?
So the main thing to help hedgehogs, and we often get asked this when we do talks as well, is, you know, we ask if people see hedgehogs in the garden, and they say no. It's like, well, if you feed them, they'll come. And that's certainly the case in my garden. It was -5 last night here, and I was still shoveling up hedgehog poo this morning. So we have, I think I have 4 feeding stations in my garden at the moment, and they are still being used. Not quite as much as in the summer, but feeding hedgehogs, and it's very simple to do, is to make a feeding station. There's lots of ideas if you Google them. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to grab one out of the garden and clean it up today. It's been a bit of a mad day. But just a plastic box turned upside down with a hedgehog-sized hole in, like that size of a CD case, is great. Brick on it to support it, stop it blowing away, and just a dish of cat biscuits. That's all you need to put. And my Blue Peter thinks, just simple, cheap cat biscuits out in the garden is absolutely fine. Crunchy, they're good for their teeth. We do feed higher quality cat biscuits in rescue with more protein content. You can get specialist hedgehog foods, but do watch the ones you buy because some contain loads of rubbish. But that's a pellety one that we like, the spikes, and that's good for weaning the babies. And I use sort of really tiny sort of kitten biscuits as well here. And so some people like to put out wet food in the garden, but they find that often attracts flies. But just cat biscuits are absolutely fine. And really important is a bowl of water, a shallow bowl of water, fresh water. Ours just have it out of the water, but they seem to prefer that. They also like to paddle in that as well. Yeah, so several water bowls around the garden for them. And we watch them on the night. It's lovely because we have one just outside of French windows. Some people put trail cams out so they can watch the hedgehogs, but so we just watch them in the garden. It's lovely.
No.
So,
my dad gets them in their garden. Yeah, I love seeing his footage from his cam from watching them sniffling around.
Yeah.
And one of the big things as well is looking at, and it's certainly a message I put across in my books, is about checking the access to your garden, because habitat is one of the biggest threats that's facing hedgehogs, isn't it? And they roam an a huge distance at night, and if you have walls or straight down to your soil fences, they can't get between properties. So having a little hedgehog highway, again, the size of a CD case, is just ideal. Just cut into the bottom of your fence, if it does go straight down to the floor, just so that they can get through, does really help them move and find food and find shelter, doesn't it? And Anne, is there anything that you think the public should avoid doing? So things that maybe they do well-meaning, but it can cause problems.
We need to dispel the myth that you give them bread and milk. They are lactose intolerant. Milk is really, really bad for them. And the bread, it absolutely fills them up and gives them no calorific value at all. So you're just going to end up with no energy and very full hedgehogs. So like Angela says, cheap cat biscuits, don't need much more than that. And they're more than happy. They do walk a good mile a night. Shelter. We do sell beautifully made hedgehog houses for your garden. They're £35 and you have to collect them from Hutton. I just slipped that in. I have a wood pile. We've got wood piles all over our garden. And underneath one of the wood piles, we've just dug it into a hollow, put some bricks in it and stuck a paving slab over the top. And that is one of our most popular hedgehog houses. That's it. Water. More hedgehogs die of dehydration than starvation.
And in the summer, isn't it? And that if you've got your water dish out, if you just put a bit of a pebble in it, it just stops it. And the same in the winter, that will stop it freezing so much as well. So
it does, and it also, if the water's in between all the pebbles and the hoglets get in it, then there's no way they're going to drown in it, but they can still drink from it.
Perfect. So that having that you talked about the log pile, it's something that's generally getting awareness raised for all wildlife and insects and bees, etc., having a messy part of your garden where you let the grass grow wild, you let wild flowers grow.
Yeah.
If you ever have something delivered on a pallet, pallets, or they can make great places for hibernation, because hedgehog can safely tuck under the warmth of the wood and everything like that. Just ideal. So a nice messy area. It's a brilliant excuse if you're not a gardener to go, it's a wildlife habitat. It's meant to look like that. So take advantage.
Yeah, my garden is full of fallen leaves at the moment, and it's a great excuse not to clear them up, because I can actually see one of the hedgehog houses in my garden where they've been dragging the leaves into it to add to the straw that's in the hedgehog house. So it's just leave them.
Perfect.
Gardener.
Now I'm just going to remove my veil a second because it's actually falling down me, but I've just spotted an earlier comment from Jo saying she loves the veil. Miss Havisham beware. I think absolutely, yes, love that. Now we've talked a little bit about the wish list earlier, but let's talk some more. So specifically, how can the public help Wolds Rescue and Walkington Hedgehog Centre? So Anne, tell us just a little bit more about the wish list. It's coming along at the back. What difference does this make to you?
It makes a tremendous amount of difference to us, because we do need a lot of specialist equipment. I'll just show you my very famous my microscope. This equipment like that we don't expect the general public to buy, but if we're spending all our money on food, on disinfectant, on syringes and things like that, then we can't afford the expensive things like the incubators and that. Yeah. So if you have a look at our Facebook page, Wolds has one, Walkington has one, and pinned to the top, it tells you, click this link and it's an Amazon wish list. Now, you don't have to buy it through the Amazon wish list. You get your ideas from the Amazon wish list, and you may go off and find it somewhere cheaper. But we love it. Every time something pops through the door or the postman knocks on the back and it says Wolds Hedgehog Rescue, we know it's a donation, and it is just fabulous. And when the things that we're most short of are at the top of the list, and I do spend a bit of time now and again just moving things around. There we also have a PayPal where we can take cash donations as well, and that's on the link.
And what's lovely is, I follow Wolds Rescue Centre's Facebook feed, and when you go in, you get lots of pictures about the hedgehogs that have been rescued, the ones that have been released, and also the kind of the pictures of the gifts that have been donated and thank yous and everything. And it's lovely to see how generous the public can be with the things that they have donated. Really nice to see that. And what you've also got is you've got a shop on your Facebook page, haven't you? So we talked earlier about some of the wood products that Anne, your husband, makes. Angela, your husband, makes some beautifully turned products. Angela, tell us a little bit more about some of the crafts and the cakes and the different things that you make that help raise funds, and where people can get hold of these.
Yeah, well, we believe in giving people something for their donations. So Anne and I, we both started really with when we were both crafting to fundraise, and we can both knit and sew and bake. Our big seller pre-Christmas was our pud hogs, and I don't have any examples left because we sold them all, but we knitted about 600 of little tiny tinsel hedgehogs. Don't know if you can see this one. I had to knock this one up this afternoon because we'd run out. We had them in lots of different colours. This is just stuffed, so we'll just go on sale at one of our events. But they did have a little Cadbury's chocolate pud in them. Now, we've already got pre-orders for next year, so we've got to hope that Cadbury's release them next year. But we just kept having to buy more and more and more for them. So that was one of the things. And the tinsel hogs in different sizes do sell sort of really well.
They're so lovely. And you can put cream eggs in them as well, I can imagine.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is it. You can reuse the pud hog ones because they had an opening in the bottom. This one hasn't, but you can use it as a finger puppet. You can put a cream egg in it at Easter. I mean, I started the knitted ones last Easter with cream eggs, and the money we raised paid for a gazebo that we now have for events so we can stay dry.
Oh, brilliant. And Anne, who have you got there waving at us just a moment ago?
This is, somebody asked me if I could come up with a doorstop. This is my doorstop. He's got his little worm.
Oh, how cute.
Yeah. So
again, these are available online, aren't they, on your shop? I can see Angela.
Well,
yeah.
Jessica will know just how bad Angela and I are at this technology lark, and I've forgotten how to do the shop.
I don't know how to do the shop at all.
It hasn't got spikes. I don't understand it.
But there is a family fun day coming up, isn't there? So
yes.
That doesn't involve you having to do technology. So some of these things will be for sale there, I presume.
Yeah.
Oh yes, everything. Yes. It's just an open day. It's in the garden. Angela will be doing talks on how it all operates. She'll be showing you the equipment and everything. We have cake stalls, craft stalls. We've got a big children's area where they can learn, they can do little competitions, and the rest of it's just get your money out your purse and give it to us, really. Tombola, things like that.
Show us the money.
That's the one.
Yeah.
We don't charge you to come in.
This is being held on May the 1st, which is the bank holiday weekend.
Yes.
And so again, watch out for details coming on their Facebook page. I would actually love to have gone. However, I'm celebrating a very special big 50 birthday that day. So I'm hoping I will have some birthday plans, otherwise somebody's in trouble. So I won't be able to go, but I will have visited the centre before then. So keep your eye out for things happening. Now, it is 7 o'clock. I don't know where that's gone. So we will need to say goodbye. But I just saw an amazing question a little bit further up from Karen Louise Hollis. I'd just like us to answer, if you don't mind. And this is just, I'd like to know how much medical treatment the rescuers can do themselves and how much they need to use a vet. And she says, I was interested in this aspect in Jessica's new book too, though not so keen on the maggots. Now, you've talked a lot about some of the treatment you do. So I suppose I'll just spin that question around and say, at what point do you need to take a hedgehog to a vet? What are the things that you draw a line at and they need to step in? So, Anne, if you could answer that.
Injuries, broken bones. We don't have X-ray facilities. What we do have is we all have the ability to find out what parasites are. We take a feces sample, we put it under the microscope. We can physically see the worms running around and wiggling around in these samples. We know how to identify them. We take a photograph of the slide, send it to the vet. The vet prescribes the meds for us, and we do all the injecting and everything. So we're quite well trusted by the vets because we do work very closely to them. But yeah, we can't do anything with a broken leg and pain relief. We're not allowed to keep pain relief in. So if we think that a hedgehog is in distress, then we will go to the vets for medication and for pain relief.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I could actually sit here for hours all evening and talk to you. If you happen to live not too far from where Anne and Angela are, they do talks at WI and other places like that. And as Joe pointed out, and I completely agree, Anne and Angela need their own TV show. They're both so informative and professional. You did tell me when I came to visit that you're like a double act when you do WI together. I can absolutely imagine. I bet you have the women in stitches, so informative, so straightforward, so easy to relate to what you're talking about. So as I said, unfortunately, we just have our hour. I could just go on and on talking to you because you are amazing. You are inspiring, informative, passionate about what you do. And I think that's the thing. Anybody who I've come across who is involved in hedgehog rescue, it's like a vocation. There's something in your heart and so passionate. And one of the things I've loved about writing the books is how many people get in touch and just say they have completely fallen in love with hedgehogs as a result of learning about them from how we present the rescue centre. They've bought hedgehog merch, they've helped out a rescue centre, they found a hedgehog that they've rescued that they would have had no idea it was in trouble otherwise. And that is just kind of so rewarding as well. You know, we can make a difference and really help these little creatures. And Gail is saying she needs one of those doorstops. So there are loads of lovely comments. If you do get a chance to have a look at them, what I might do, because I know you might struggle to find this because of the tech nightmares, I'll try and do you some screenshots of some of the lovely comments, and I'll send you them on our messenger conversation so you can see what people.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So thank you so very, very much for joining us today. Thank you to all the listeners for the interaction. I hope we've covered most of the questions that have been asked about hedgehogs. I think everyone's been enthralled with what you've had to say. Claire's just popped up a little message that my brand new book, A Wedding at Hedgehog Hollow, is currently soaring up the charts. I'm number 76 in the Kindle chart. I think I had almost peaked and may actually have peaked inside the top 100 on the Audible chart as well. So really, really appreciating that. If you missed this, I want to catch up on it again. It will be available on the Book and Tonic website. Website, not at all. On the Facebook page. Again, Anne and Angela, I will send you a link so that you can see it back if you would like to do so. Do get involved in your local rescue centre. Do have a look at the wish list and support, if you can, Wolds and Walkington Rescue Centre. And, you've seen the amazing work they do and what a difference it makes. And do you have any final words you would like to say before we say goodbye?
Just that they're worth it. They are really, really worth it. And thank you for having us.
Thank you. And Angela, any final words from you?
Just if you want to see hedgehogs, feed them in your garden and they will find you and come and make your lives much happier.
I love that. It's like Field of Dreams, isn't it? As you said, if you build it, they will come. So if you feed them, they will come. And so amazing. Well, thank you both. If you can just both stay just for a moment while we close. Thank you for everyone who's joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening. All the best. Bye-bye, everybody.